Welcome to the Shamanic Author Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Worm. Are you a coach, holistic, or spiritual entrepreneur struggling to write your first book? The Shamanic Author Podcast will help you release that resistance inside yourself so you can access that state of being that writing requires. See, society has it all wrong. From a young age, we're told that we have to have the house, the degree, the fancy car to be happy. But the truth is, we have to become that state of happiness, and then the material success follows. We are human beings, not human havings, right? So I'm so excited for this episode today. Let's explore energy, alternative health, first-time author challenges, and book publishing marketing strategies. If this sounds like you, I want you to head over to mountainmindtricks.com/ultimate-guide for a free Ultimate Aspiring Author Guide. There's 3 steps in there that'll teach you exactly how to write a book that makes a big difference in your spiritual business, in your holistic or coaching practice. And if you want to know when the next episode is live, get updates, and learn more about the shamanic writing process, follow me on Instagram at mountain_mind_tricks. That's mountain mind tricks with underscores. Follow the podcast and subscribe to the show to make sure you get the notifications when I release new episodes. Wow, I'm so excited for this episode. Nate Dukes is an amazing author. His story will blow you away, and his book, You'll Never Change, will completely change your life. If you follow the steps, the recommendations, if you follow the book step by step, it will completely change your life, just like it did for Nate. And let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited for today. We're blessed to have Nate Dukes. He's an author, speaker, and his story is so inspirational and powerful that I just had to get him on the podcast as soon as possible. And his book is actually launching this week. And Nate, could you introduce yourself and let us know, where did the book come from? Like, what's the backstory of You'll Never Change? And I love the title, by the way, and I was just scrolling through the book. I can't wait to read it. And just tell us how, what's the background of this book? How did it happen?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is an incredible podcast. I've been following what you've been doing for a while, and I love this show. I love the heart and the ideas behind it. And really, they say that a good book is the conversations that you have over and over again. Well, for the last several years, I've been doing a lot of coaching and mentorship on guys and girls who want to make a comeback in their life. So they've experienced some form of failure, and where they're at is not where they want to be. Now, there's several reasons why we get stuck and we don't ever actually make a comeback. And that's kind of been my area of expertise these last few years, is helping people get to where they want to go. And so I took the principles that I used to make my comeback several years ago. I combined them with my story, put it in a format that was easy to digest, easy to relate to, high on the inspiration. So it's going to make you feel good while you read it, but it's also going to challenge you to grow as well. So this isn't just something that we read and we put down, but there's actual a comeback challenge at the end of each chapter. And so this book is designed for anybody that struggles with self-doubt, anybody that needs to create a vision for their future or doesn't even know how to or what that is, somebody who might need a mentor in their life and doesn't know how to necessarily find one. This book is going to help you deal with rejection and the haters, because we've all got them in our life. It's going to do several things that are going to be the building blocks and the foundational stuff that you need, so that in 2, 3, 4 years from now, you can look back and say, man, how did I get here? And that's really been my heart, is helping people start from the bottom, create their own comeback, and prove those negative voices in their life wrong.
Oh man, I love that so much. And just reading the description and going through some of the pages, and I went through all the comeback challenges, and they are solid gold for people that are listening. Just the comeback challenges alone will absolutely change your life. There's no doubt in my mind. And Nate, could you tell us what's the story behind Like, what happened to you that made you so inspirational? Because, by the way, your voice is just, it's making me get amped up because, like, you're inspiring me already, man.
Well, yeah. So I understand that I'm inspiring people because I'm inspired myself. You know, Tony Robbins says you can't take anybody somewhere that you aren't willing to go yourself first. And so this for me is something that I get excited and passionate about because my life hasn't always looked the way it is right now. You know, right now, me and my wife, we got married last year. She's the most amazing, wonderful person that I've ever met. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. We bought our first investment property, so I sit on the board of a nonprofit. You know, I coach several people. I lead hundreds of volunteers at my church every single week. So my life looks very different now than what it used to. So I just gave you the highlight reel of my story, but it didn't start there. It actually started when I was a little kid. We grew up in the projects. We were the poor family. We didn't have a whole lot. And I don't really blame my parents for anything that they did. They were kids trying to raise kids, and they had some broken mindsets about finances. They had some broken mindsets about poverty in life, and how to become what you want to be in life, and those broken mindsets were passed down to us kids. And I remember one time my mom coming up to us around Christmas time saying, "Hey Nate, I just want you to know there's not going to be a whole lot of presents underneath the Christmas tree this year." And as a kid, man, that's never anything you want to hear, right? But there was this really great church that came, and they bought Christmas presents for my mom. And I remember that Christmas was really special, but I also knew that it didn't come from my parents. And so we had this understanding that there was never going to be enough. And I really wanted to break out of that. And so I started going to this church at a young age, and they were super great people. But I always had this feeling, nobody ever said it out loud, but I always felt like God was watching me and he was waiting for me to mess up. And as soon as I did something wrong, he was going to punish me. And so when I turned 18 and went away to college for the very first time, man, I felt like nobody was watching me. And that's when I first got introduced to alcohol. I got first introduced to drugs, and I wanted to escape the chaos of my childhood. But instead of bettering myself at school, I actually found myself obsessed and enveloped into this party culture and lifestyle that college offered me. And so what started out as a weekend thing turned into a daily thing. And then all of a sudden my partying was competing against with my studying. And I found myself taking prescription ADD medication. And man, when I took that for the first time, I felt like Superman, and I could accomplish things, and I was focused. And that actually translated me into trying harder drugs and harder drugs. And all of a sudden, what was a casual drug experience turned into a full-blown drug addiction. And so I went to college for 4 years, managed not to graduate or come anywhere close to a degree, but I did get a master's in having a really good time. I don't want to lie. I had a blast while I was in college until it wasn't fun anymore. I had a fun time until it wasn't fun. And so after 4 years, I ran out of money and I had to move back in with my mom and dad, which, by the way, that is the real walk of shame. So I'm sure some of our listeners, they know what a walk of shame is. The real walk of shame is having to move back in with your parents at 21 years old. But through a series of events, I was actually able to get connected with a buddy of mine who wanted to open up a bar in downtown Youngstown, Ohio. And he asked me if I wanted to be a partner involved with this. And this touched on a couple areas in my life. It touched on the entrepreneur that was inside of me, but it also touched on this party lifestyle that I had developed. And so I jumped in with both feet, and we took what was a failing business in the beginning and turned it into something that was very successful over the course of 2 years. And so now I have access to more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. But I want you to understand something. This is not like a life-changing amount of money. It was just, you got to understand, I was the poor kid growing up. So for me, this felt like the world. All of a sudden, I had the right car. I had the right apartment. It was a beautiful apartment in downtown Youngstown. I was in social circles that I had never been in before. It was easy for me to pick up girls. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this podcast, but I was experiencing things that I had never experienced before. But you know what I found? Even having all of that, I was still empty and I was still unhappy on the inside. And I couldn't figure out why, because my life was different than what it had ever looked before, but I was more miserable than I had ever been before. And so I went on this journey of saying, okay, well, if I'm still empty, what can I put inside of me to fill this emptiness? And I tried everything. That's when my drug addiction really started to ramp up. But I also developed this really severe gambling addiction as well. And listen, I am the classic definition of a bad gambler. Okay, I wasn't any good. If you don't know anything about gambling, it is designed for the house to always win, and the house always won when I went to the casino. But I was addicted to the high that it gave me, and so I kept going back. And over the course of a year, I ended up really gambling and losing everything that I personally owned. I gambled it all away, and so my bank accounts were on empty. But what was interesting was that the business bank accounts were on full. And so I decided that I was going to start taking and dipping into the business bank accounts. It's a decision that I really regret, but I guess in that moment I was thinking, well, geez, I'm the owner of this business anyways. Isn't it my money? Well, here's the thing: you can't take you can't take business money and use it for personal investments. That is called embezzlement. And so I was stealing money from these business bank accounts to fuel my drug and gambling addiction. And we had several employees who worked for us at that time, and these people worked hard, man. They were great. They had to put food on their table for their kids. They had to pay their bills. And I remember one day it was payday, and my business partner came up to me and he said, "All right, Nate, it's time to cut the checks for everybody." And I just came clean to him in that moment. I said, "Hey, if we write these checks, there's not going to be enough money to cover them in the accounts." And you could see the look on his face. He was confused. He was frustrated. He was upset. I don't think he fully processed it in that moment, but then things started to catch up to him and he started to realize what was going on. In that moment, he realized that I had taken the payroll money the night before and I'd gambled it all away. And so he gave me an ultimatum at that point. He said, "You can either sign everything over to me free and clear and walk away from this business completely, or I'm going to get a lawyer involved and I'm going to press charges." And so here I was, 26 years old, not knowing who I am. My identity's wrapped up in being a business owner. And when that business was taken away from me, I didn't know who I was. And so once again, I moved back in with my mom and dad, and they had no idea what to do with me. I was super depressed, full of anxiety, still dealing with a drug and gambling addiction. I could hardly hold down a job. I'd get a job at a local restaurant as a server, and I'd end up resorting back to what I instinctually knew, which was to steal. And so I'd take money from the cash register, I get caught, and then I would get fired. And this happened 3 different times. And finally, the last time, I was walking around my parents' apartment complex. I'd just gotten fired. I'd taken a handful of pills. It was 3 in the morning, and I was just trying to find anything that I could get my hands on to sell for more money. And I was walking around to different vehicles in the parking lot, trying to see if any of them were unlocked to see if I could find anything to take. And I ended up opening up the car door to a 1999 Buick LeSabre. And as I opened up the center console, I found inside of it, there were a set of spare keys, because apparently that's where you keep the spare keys to a 1999 Buick LeSabre. And so in that moment, I thought to myself, maybe this is an opportunity for me to run away from all of my problems, because at that point, I'd lost my vehicle. And I knew that if I could just get away from this place, maybe I could start my life over and figure things out. But how many of us know that when our life is a mess, it's not actually our surroundings that are always the problem. Oftentimes it's us that's the problem, and it doesn't matter how fast or how far we run, our problems always find a way to catch up to us. But I sure was going to try anyways. And so I decided in that moment that I was going to take this Buick LeSabre, drive it across the country to Houston, Texas, and start over. I chose Texas because I had a buddy who lived in Houston, and he said, if you ever find a way to get down here, I'll help you start over. I'll help you get back on your feet. Now, he had no idea that I was about to steal this car, but I packed up 5 garbage bags of clothes and I headed for Texas. I made it about halfway, right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, a small town called Ashland City. I was parked at a laundromat / gas station where I was just trying to get some sleep. I had been up for 3 days at that point, and I knew I didn't want to show up looking like a mess. And so I was woken up at 9 a.m. to 3 really loud bangs on the car window, and a stranger's hand reached in. It grabbed me by the chest, threw me to the ground, put me in handcuffs, and sat me in the back of a cop car. And the weight of every decision that I had ever made in my life sat on my chest like a ton of bricks. And this thought kept replaying in my mind over and over and over again, which is, you'll never change. And I'd heard that from teachers before. I'd heard that from ex-girlfriends. But I think that oftentimes the loudest voice is the one that is in our own head. And it kept telling me, this is your life. You're never going to change. And you know what was interesting is that I don't know what you're dealing with right now while you're listening to this, things that you've been believing that, man, my life is never going to look any different. I'm just here to tell you that the experiences that I've had, my message is very simple. You can change. And I actually believe that God can help you do it. And so after everything that I've been through and after everything that you've been through, if he can do it for me, he can absolutely do it for you as well. And so I went to Cheatham County Jail for 6 months, where they gave me a felony theft over 1,000 because you're not allowed to steal cars and drive them across the country. So I spent 6 months in jail, and while I was there, it was a pod set up. So I shared a pod with 16 other guys. There were 8 bunk beds. There were 3 tables, 2 toilets, 1 TV, but there were 0 windows in the entire place. The only opportunity that we got to get out was every month they would give us a chance to go to something they called a church service. Now, I was less interested in going to church, but I was more interested in actually getting out of the pod and seeing different things. And so we walked down this long hallway, and off to the left-hand side, there was this 16 folding chairs set up in this cinder block room. And as we all filed in, we were some ugly looking dudes at the time too. Our hair was grown out. Our beards were a mess. Orange is not a great color on any man. And as we're filing in, this really old man walks in, and he pulls out this really, really old guitar. And as he starts to tune it up, he looks at us and says, "Fellas, the only difference between you and me is that I never got caught." And then he starts to sing the song Amazing Grace. And it goes, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see." And I looked around the room and I saw 16 grown men, ugly white girl crying. There was just tears streaming down their face. And in that moment, I really do believe that God's grace showed up. I was sitting in the middle of my mess. And what was so interesting is that I described this as a perfect moment because I wasn't worried about my past, the things that I had done wrong. I wasn't worried about my future. How was I going to get out of here? But in that moment, I'd experienced this overwhelming peace. And I just believe that there's no mess that God's grace won't get in the middle of. And I just believe that grace is unmerited or undeserved favor on your life. And some people call it karma. Some people call it luck. I just choose to believe that God's grace is guiding my life. And from there, I knew that, God, if you're real, I need your help. And I don't know how to change, but I know that I want to. And so when I got out of jail, I knew that I needed to make some new decisions. And I ended up getting connected with a local church. My little sister, she invited me, and I wasn't really interested in going, but she said, it's better than anything else you've been doing for a while, so why don't you give it a shot? And the truth is that she was right. And so I went to church, and I was a mess of a person, man. I was very messy, but there were some people there that were willing to get messy with me. And I got connected with someone that became a mentor in my life. And I will tell you, a good mentor will lead you places that you need to go, but maybe you don't actually want to go in the moment. And they really did encourage me, and they saw something inside of me that I didn't even know was there. And through this whole process, I had to really work out some negative, ugly, broken places inside of me. And I had this understanding that God forgave me. He loved me, but I still wasn't ready to forgive myself. And so through going on this process, I learned what self-love was. And I went on this personal development journey where I really got deep into how do I heal from the past traumas that I had experienced. And I went on a journey of making amends to other people. And now my life looks completely different. I talked to you about what my highlight reel is. And so I was able to make my comeback. And now one of the great passions of my life is helping other people make their comeback. And so my life is not just about chasing success anymore, but really I'm trying to chase impact. And what does fulfillment look like? And how do I help other people? Because that's what is going to ultimately fill me up.
Oh man, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so inspirational and such a Oh, I just got chills, man, especially like that moment of grace coming through that guitar or through that old man and man, that feeling still comes through when you tell that story. It is so beautiful. And I guess I want to ask you like a little bit deeper on like what was that moment like? Like you mentioned the chills, people were crying, but
Yeah.
what was that? I mean, that must have been like God stepping into the room, right? Like what was that?
Well, yeah, I didn't understand in the moment, but it was the presence of God in that place. And I looked around and I could see all of these criminals, these guys who have done terrible things. They've stolen, they've taken advantage, they've hurt. And I looked at every single one of them and they were just as broken as I was. And there's something special happens when an imperfect person comes in contact with a very perfect God. You can't help but feel overwhelmed. And so that's exactly what it was in that moment. It was a very overwhelming feeling. And I still remember it to this day because at first I didn't quite grasp what was going on. I didn't understand it, but I knew that this was something special and I knew that it is something that I wanted for my life. And when I got out, man, this guy who really mentored me, and he had something that I wanted, which was a God-centered life. He had a life that was focused and a relationship with God. And so he had that and I wanted it. But if I was ever going to get what he had, I had to be willing to do what he did. And so he really took me on this really great journey of understanding what that actual moment was and how do I access it in my everyday life.
Oh, wow. I think that's such a big key. That your mentor sounds amazing because I we have that access, we have that grace every second. It's just if we're tapping into it or
Yes.
maybe we're tapping into something that's not so constructive like you used to be doing, right? And like I think we all go through phases or places like that in our life where we're tapping into the opposite of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what I think. I believe that God is always speaking to us. I think sometimes our lives get too busy, or we get too loud in our own head to actually hear him. I heard somebody once explain it like if you've ever gone and got coffee with a friend and you walked into Starbucks and you saw him sitting at the table and then you ordered your drink and you sat down and you guys caught up for an hour. If you weren't paying attention, you would have noticed that the whole entire time there was music playing above you. And maybe you didn't even know that it was playing or you could even hear the words. But oftentimes that's what the voice of God is like, is that it's always there. But if we're not intentional about slowing down and listening for it, we might actually miss it.
Oh man, I love that analogy. That's amazing because I think I've done that in a lot of coffee shops or Starbucks or whatever it is. It's totally missed the music. Wow. That's insightful, man. I love that. And something I was reading in your book was one of the comeback challenges is a random act of kindness. And I want to ask you about this because I truly think this is probably one of the most spiritual and like energetic things to do in the entire universe is like you're giving somebody, but somehow, some way, that energy is going to show up in a totally different way in your life, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so this is what I really believe, that as soon as I can get my focus, my attention off of my problems and I can get them on somebody else's, that's actually when I give access to God to be able to get his hands on my problems. If my hands are so tightly wrapped up on everything that's wrong with me, I'm not letting anybody else come in to be able to help with that. But as soon as I take my hands off my problems, I put them down, I begin to help other people, which, by the way, the side effect of helping people is fulfillment in our life. When we begin to help other people, I get my hands on their problems. Now, all of a sudden, my issues, my mess ups, my mistakes, my brokenness is available for a higher power, for God to come in and start to work in my life. And so I really do believe that for me, success is all about what can I get for me. So what can I take? How can I achieve? Where can I go? And I don't think there's anything wrong with success. I hope that you have dreams and goals and vision for your life, and I hope that you accomplish all of them. But success without fulfillment actually equals failure. And so for me, fulfillment comes from how can I help somebody else? How can I empower somebody? How can I inspire someone? How can I take someone from a place of being broken and stuck to a place of achievement, fulfillment, success, hope, inspiration? That's what I want to ultimately do, is be an impact in somebody's life, and the side effect is me finding fulfillment. And so through helping other people, random acts of kindness, being generous, loving others, smiling when you don't have to. I love what Dave Chappelle says. He says he's on this kindness conspiracy. He says that being kind to people, even when we don't need to, is actually the cure for the problems that the human race is experiencing right now. It's so easy to be kind to somebody that you ultimately get something from, right? So if you're working out a business agreement with somebody, or you're trying to get a job, or you're interested in a girl, it's super easy to be kind to them in that moment. But what happens when you don't have to anymore? Are you still that kind person that you once gave off? And so for him, what he said is that I want to be kind to people even when I get nothing in return.
Oh, it's so powerful, man. Just the idea of giving with like selflessly, right? Like there's no reason or rhyme but giving. And for me, this happened to me a couple years ago. I remember I was in a restaurant eating dinner with my wife, and all of a sudden the waiter comes by. He's like, "Hey, somebody in the room paid for your dinner. Here you go. Have a good night." And it just blew me away that somebody random bought our dinner for us. It was probably one of the most strange spiritual kind of God moments of my life. And I think that's how random acts of kindness are for most people, of like, really, you're going to give me this money, or you're going to give me this thing? And it's just so powerful. So I love that about your book, that you brought that in, because I think, just like Dave Chappelle said, I do think this is a cure for so many problems. So thank you so much for saying that. And one of the other things in your challenges is to evaluate your circle. And I thought that was so powerful because, I guess in psychology or whatever, we always hear like you're kind of the sum of the 5 relationships you have. And when I started digging deeper into evaluating your circle, it's exactly what you're talking about. I was like, who are you with? What relationships are you cultivating? And I really appreciated that. Did you want to speak on that more?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So psychology will tell us that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Science will actually show you that you will make the average amount of money of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so if we actually understand this principle, if we believe it to be true, then we have some personal responsibility that we have to take into account of, if I don't like the direction that the people in my life are going, am I willing to be choosy? Am I willing to be selective on who I let into my life? And so when I talk about this, it can be a little uncomfortable for some people, and I totally understand why. They'll start to think to themselves, are you telling me I have to give up on people? Are you telling me I have to walk away from friendships? Are you telling me I have to say no? And for some of you, absolutely. For some of you, this is actually the permission that you have been waiting for, to walk away from that toxic relationship that has been taking you away from the direction, the purpose, the calling that is on your life right now, and you feel dragged in the opposite direction. You do not need that in your life. You have every right to say, I am being selective with who I let speak into my life. I'm being selective with who I surround myself with. It's like this. The rule of thumb is, I never want to take advice from somebody that I'm not willing to trade places with. For instance, I don't want to take financial advice from my broke uncle at the barbecue. I love you, Unc. You're great. You're amazing. You're funny. But you've shown me what not to do. And so I need people in my life who are going to show me what to do. I want several types of people in my life. First type of person is somebody that I get the opportunity to pour into, somebody that I get to love, I get to support, I get to cheer on, I get to root for. I need somebody on my same level, somebody that's going through the same things that I'm going through, somebody that I can relate to. I can take the armor off around. I can be real and vulnerable and honest with. And then I need somebody in my life who's a little farther ahead than what I am, someone that can speak into my situation, who can encourage me and say, hey, don't worry, it gets better. Or listen, you need to pivot here. You need to watch out for this. I love this saying that your growth is directly connected with your group. So who you do life with, listen, it matters. It matters more than what you think. And sometimes being solo is better than being surrounded. And so I always want people in my life who are going to encourage, who are going to challenge, who are going to be real with me. And I need people who are going to know me, KNOW, know what I've been through, know what I've struggled with, know what I need to avoid. And then I need people in my life that are going to know me. No, Nate, that doesn't look good on you. No, Nate, you shouldn't send that text. No, Nate, you shouldn't let this resentment build up in your life. I need these types of people because we have blind spots as human beings. We have these areas of our life that we don't necessarily see. And so I am dependent on my circle. I'm dependent on my group to be that support system for me. I have to be willing to take personal responsibility and take an inventory of who do I do life with. And if you don't like it, you have the right to change it. You don't have to feel stuck because, well, these are my friends and I don't want to give up on them. But man, are they actually your friends? Do they actually support your dreams? Do they actually believe in you? Do they actually want what's best for you? Because a friend who wants what's best for you isn't always worried about your feelings. You know, they might say something to you that hurts, but maybe it's something that you actually needed to hear. And so that's the type of people that I really want in my life, because you are the sum total of the 5 people you do life with. You are going to make the average amount of money that you surround yourself with. And so now for me, understanding that, I've gotten to this place where I'm very selective, but I'm also very thankful. I'm grateful for the people that I have in my life now, because these are pure, genuine, honest people. But it took me a journey of saying no to a whole lot of people to get here.
Oh man, I love that so much, and for me, this resonates so much because in the last couple years, I've transitioned careers from firefighting to doing, the book publishing, the book coaching, the mental emotional release work, and my entire circle has completely changed. I think I don't really resonate with any firefighters anymore, and it's at first it was sad, but now it's like, no, this is where I want to be. This is what I want in my life. And so everybody listening, like, your circle, just like Nate is talking about, is everything. And I just seriously, Nate, this book is gold. Like, for everybody listening, like, you got to check this book out because I'm telling you, there's so much. Like, we've just hit on a couple things in here. This book is going to change your life. And Nate, what I want to ask you about is the process that you went through to write this, because there's so many different journeys that
Yeah.
authors go through, and I'm curious what yours was like.
Yeah. So for me, mine was very interesting. So I had this dream, this goal, this vision, whatever you want to call it, to write a book, because I wanted this to make an impact in somebody's life. I wanted to create a book, a resource that somebody could read and start to make their comeback almost immediately after reading it. And so I sat down for the first time to try to write the book, and I spent 2 hours on it. And at the 2.5 hour mark, I deleted everything and I started over. And so I started writing and typing again. And then I got to the 3.5 hour mark and I deleted and got rid of everything that I typed to that point. I just felt frustrated, overwhelmed. And then I had a buddy of mine who, during 2020, we would take walks in the park together. So everything's shut down. We don't have work. We are just trying to stay physically active. And so we started taking walks in the park together, and we just talk about life and we catch up. And I was getting ready to write a book, and he was getting ready to write a book. And I was so focused on the marketing end of things, and I had all these great ideas of things that I wanted to do and things I wanted to include in the book, the comeback challenges, how I wanted to lead people to the website, how I was going to interact with them on social media, how I was going to help share their stories. And I remember at one point we were walking, and I just said to him, you know what, dude, I am getting ahead of myself. I actually need to sit down and actually write this book. And then you know what he said to me? He said, Nate, why don't you let me help you? And it kind of blew me away because I didn't really expect him to say that, because he's a great writer. He's really good at creating content. And I didn't even know what that looked like. He said, Nate, I want to actually start this ghostwriting business. And I would love to sit down and work with you to see what that can look like to actually get this book on paper for you. And so we sat down through several sessions of several hours. Together, he helped walk me through what storyboarding the book could look like. And then we sat down and I told him story after story and principle after principle. And he took the words that he recorded on his phone and he translated them into a format that was actually typed up and that sounded and looked good. And then we had this finished product. Well, so it wasn't finished because it still needed to be edited. and I wanted to add my voice to it. And so me and my wife, we got together, and she's a school teacher and she teaches English, and we sat down for 2 days. We locked ourselves in a hotel room and we went through this thing line by line, word by word, and we deleted, I don't know, probably 25, 30% of it. And then we started adding in my voice, my structure. We rearranged some things. We really edited the book into a way that made sense, so that it included my personality. You're going to hear a lot of that high inspiration that you can hear in my voice. It's going to come through in the book very clear. And so he really helped us get to a place where my skill set wasn't, I'm not a writer. I'm a storyteller. I'm a hope dealer. I'm somebody that can inspire. But the actual skill set of writing is listen, my seventh grade school teacher looked at me while I was in English class, and she said, after I turned in an essay, she said, "Nate, what are you doing here, man? You need to get this together." And so writing was never a strong suit for me. So I surrounded myself with someone who had a strength where I had a weakness, partnered with them. And it's really cool because he actually started a ghostwriting business off of that. I was his first client, and he's actually gone on and he's still doing this for other people, where he takes their messages and their stories and puts it in a format and a way that they can actually take and now edit it. I was so intimidated by the process of writing a book. He helped make this possible for me. I don't know that You'll Never Change would be where it's at today without his help.
Oh, that's so beautiful, man. Like I love this that like another mentor showed up to really help you do and go through this process. And I'm curious, while you were telling him these stories, while you and your wife were editing, like this whole process for you, was there this journey, this integration of everything you've learned in jail through everything you've gone through in life? Was there almost this healing process that went through just by telling your story, just by organizing the facts, the inspiration, the voice? Like was there, it's almost like God came in to facilitate a healing for you through this.
Well, yeah. So this has been an 18-month project to get from when it started to where it's at right now. And so along the way, there's been moments of tears, moments of self realization, moments of, man, I can't believe we're actually doing this. There's been some very humbling moments where I said, "Oh, I didn't actually think that this was going to be possible, but here we are." And through this whole process, I really do believe that God has been, that grace that I talked about in the beginning, his grace has been on this. It's been showing up. And I'll tell you, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been this just like, oh, this wonderful process that I just sat down and I had somebody write this book with me and we just figured it all out. And now here we are. And it's number one on Amazon as a bestseller. Listen, this has been full of frustration, of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Because anytime you make a declaration or you have a vision or a dream, that's the first thing that starts to creep in: fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that was all there. But I just really felt like through this whole process, God was reminding me, he said, "I've brought you through so much so that you can help other people with this story." And so that's where I'm at right now, is trying to help other people. But I also, the side effect was me experiencing some healing that was attached to it as well. Anytime you share your story with somebody, it's not just helping them. And there's a freedom in sharing your story. I think sometimes we get ashamed or embarrassed of what we've gone through. And so we'll hide it and we'll keep it tucked away. But when we bring out what's in the darkness, when we bring it out into the light, that's when real freedom and healing starts to happen. And so, because everything that I share in this book is very real, raw, vulnerable, I don't hold anything back. I, on the other side of the coin, have experienced some freedom and some healing along the way.
Oh wow, man, I love that so much. And it's so interesting you mentioned the fear and the doubt, because I've after interviewing so many authors, there's this central theme of, it's almost like you're bumping against your highest potential, like you're crossing this threshold through the writing process, and the fear and the doubt is like this layer, this veil that the writer has to go through to get to the other side. And it's just, it shows up, it's almost like the trickster in the story that kind of shows up and makes you second guess everything, but in reality it's just a phase, it's just a layer to go through. And I'm curious what that felt like for you. Was this pretty intense for you, or was I guess my intention is to help first time writers get through that process as well, right?
Oh, listen, there were absolutely moments where it felt overwhelming. There were late nights where I would stay up late obsessing over this. There were early mornings when I would wake up and be thinking about what I'm actually doing and why I'm trying to do this. This process is, and I loved what you said, that you have to go through it. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt are absolutely a part of this process. If you haven't been scared out of your mind or thought that this is never going to work or nobody's going to want to buy this, then you might not, either you're a unicorn or you're not doing this right, because you have to go through this. And any time that you do and you push through to the other side, it makes it so much sweeter. It makes it so much fulfilling. It makes it so much more exciting, because you've heard this before. They say that courage isn't doing something when you're not afraid. It's being scared out of your mind and doing it anyway. And writing a book, it takes a lot of courage. And so if you are thinking right now of, man, there's a story in my heart, there's a book in my mind, there's something that I want to get, a message that I want to get out to people, there's going to be plenty of thoughts of doubt that creep in, and you are going to have to come face to face with those doubts. And I'm not telling you not to have them. What I am telling you to do is have the courage to keep going anyways, because your story needs to get out. Your message needs to be out there. It has the ability to change somebody else's story. And so you are actually robbing someone else of their potential, of their moment, by not getting it out. So I just want to encourage you, push through. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt sometimes. There's going to be plenty moments of doubting yourself. But when you get to the other side, you're going to look back and you're going to thank yourself. And you're going to say, wow, I can't believe after all I've been through that we were able to get this far. There's going to be a sense of accomplishment and pride. And I just want you to really focus on what it's going to feel like in 6 months or a year, or however long it takes you to get this process out. I want you to focus on that and really envision yourself being there, because you're going to, if you continue to take the steps forward, you'll get there. There's no part of this process that is too overwhelming that you can't do. It is just a series of little steps that you continually have to take. You can't stop. Giving up never got you anywhere. So you're not going to give up this time. There's something beautiful about building your life or building your book or building your message brick by brick. And don't look at somebody else's finished product and say, I wish I had what they had, because behind every finished product is a process that somebody had to walk through. And you are walking through your process right now.
Oh man, you're so inspirational. You're just giving me chills. I love it. Thank you so much. And I was like, before we got on the podcast here, I was checking out your book on Amazon and looking at the ranking, and it is ranked really high. You know, like you mentioned, you hit #1 bestseller, but the overall rank still is congratulations, man. It is really high. Like,
thank you so much.
Job.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious on you know, did you do a self-publishing? Did you go to a traditional publisher? Like, how did the publishing go for you?
Yeah, so there's two routes, right? You can go through a publisher, or you can self-publish through Amazon. I know that if you go through a publisher, that they handle a lot of the distribution. But if you're a first-time author, sometimes they won't always help with the marketing end of things. And so I couldn't get a publishing deal even if I wanted one. I don't even know anybody in that space. And so I decided to self-publish because I was going to handle a lot of the marketing on the back end. And also too, that means I would get the majority of the royalties as well. And so for me, I really became a student of book marketing. And I don't think that I've completely cracked the code on it, but I figured out a few things. And coming from somebody who had zero audience, so I don't have a platform. I never, I don't have a big name or a huge email list. I have a couple hundred friends on Facebook and some Instagram followers. It wasn't much, but I've built everything that I have so far. And so the first step that I did is I learned how to create a launch team. So the launch team was really responsible for getting this book out and spreading the word and pumping it up. They're like a street team for any kind of band or product. And so this book was actually finished, done, completed at the end of January. And I purposely decided to wait till June to put it out because I was giving it enough time to build buzz for it, to build momentum, to get people excited for it. Though, even though I knew that it was finished and I wanted to get it out, I knew that if I could create enough momentum for it, that the book would actually go farther if I waited. And so I waited a few months, created this launch team. I had a sign up on my website. So if you want to copy that or see what I did, you can go to you'llneverchange/launch team, and you can see the form that I used, the video that I used, the requirements that I would be to be involved. The requirements for being on the launch team were you were going to pre-order a book at a discounted rate. You were going to leave a review on Amazon, which is huge. We'll talk about that in a second. And you're going to share everything on social media. In return, you get access to a free private Facebook group that I created. You get behind the scenes content. I served them every single week. I spent time with them. I encouraged them. I listened to their stories. They listened to mine. But they'd also get a copy of a digital copy of the book for free. So I sent out all of free digital copies to my launch team. So they also pre-ordered it, which was awesome. So when pre-orders hit, it fired it up to number one already. I had 144 people on the launch team who signed up. So I was able to reach out to friends, close people that I knew, people who I'd coached. And then from there, they started inviting their friends, which was really cool. I encouraged them, invite somebody who you think would really want to participate and get some value out of being on this launch team. And so they were able to get this book to number one. And then they also, their requirement is for them to review on Amazon. So everybody reviewed the book on Amazon. The book came out a week ago, and so far it has 59 reviews on it as of today. But Amazon is still, they take several days and weeks to review the reviews because they want to make sure that they're legit. So not actually every review is going to get submitted. Amazon is not interested in hearing how great of a person that I am. They don't care if you know me. They don't care if you like me. They are more interested in knowing about the book. They want your thoughts on the book, not the thoughts on the author. So just some advice for anybody that is thinking about writing a review for someone, make sure you really focus on the book. And I really stress that to the launch team, that we want to talk about the book only. And so they were able to review it. And so far, I've gotten booked at several different locations to speak about this book. I just finished up on this Sunday. I shared the message at Rust City Church in Niles, Ohio. I've been booked in several conferences, one in Columbus. I'm going to one in Maine at the end of June. And so there's a lot of really cool things that have started to come from it. But the third phase, so the first phase is launch team, getting it to number one. The second phase is reviews. Reviews are very important because it provides social proof. We care so much about what people think that we've never met before. You've never met anybody that reviews something on Amazon, but we care so much about what they think about the product. And so this provides that social proof. Reviews are I cannot stress the importance of this enough. My goal for the end of the month is to have 100 reviews, and I'd like to try and make a huge push to 250 reviews by the end of the year. And so, and then hopefully get to 1,000 reviews by the end of next year. And so you really want to push hard for reviews. But then that's the second phase. The third phase of this three-pronged marketing attack is then ads. So running Amazon ads. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still a novice at this. I have not yet cracked the code on it. I was waiting to get my reviews high enough to really start to invest into it. But everything that I've learned from ads is that in the beginning, it's going to take an initial investment. So you want to test, find out what copy works, find out what imaging works. You have to realize that we're just discovering what is my target audience. What is this? What problem is this solving for what ideal customer avatar? Who am I targeting? What do they want to see? And so once you find a way to get your ad cost below what your revenue is coming in from the book, then you have the opportunity to start to scale your advertisement. So for instance, let's say you're investing in $500 a month in advertising, but you're making $750 a month in book sales. Well, that's a good indicator that maybe it's time to scale. And so if I'm investing $1,000 or $1,500 or $5,000 into advertising, but I'm making a return on my investment, then you're really in the sweet spot. And so that's what I'm going to start experimenting over these next few weeks and this next month of what is starting to test my initial ads for this book. What does that actually look like?
Oh, wow, man. I love that so much. Yeah, the launch team is so critical. and the keywords and the categories have to be perfect when you publish. And I love this, man. The Amazon ads are, it probably is one of the best advertising platforms just because of the simplicity. And also, that person is looking for a book, and they might be
Yes.
looking at this book and then they're shopping for that book, and then it's like 10 books later they see an ad for yours and like, oh, that looks interesting. So they're hot, they're steaming hot, they want to buy a book right now. And you get to advertise to that person, and it is so much more powerful than, say, the Facebook or Instagram ads where they're just kind of cold, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. They're already looking to buy. So why don't we put our advertisement dollars in front of the people who want to buy?
Absolutely. And so I'm curious, have you been using KDP Rocket at all for some of your Amazon ads?
So I haven't actually experimented with any ads yet. I'm still in the like observation phase and learning. So I'm actually a sponge right now, trying to soak up as much knowledge and information. I'm asking questions to people who have done it before, who have gone before me. I'm trying to pick their brains. What do I stay away from? What do I move towards? And so this is the same thing that I teach these guys that I coach, is that like, hey, you can take advice and learn from people who have done it a certain way. You can model their actions and get their results. And so that's what I'm looking at right now, is what does it look like to model somebody who's been before me?
Oh, I love that, man. Yeah, and I'm curious, did somebody coach you, or did you have some sort of mentor in publishing, or did somebody teach you all this? Because it sounds like either you watched a ton of YouTube, or like you know how to publish a book, right?
YouTube University is an amazing place, man. And so I got very obsessed with learning how to market a book. A big fear of mine is that I'm gonna put my life, my heart, my soul into something, and nobody's gonna even know that it's there. And so marketing isn't forcing anybody to buy anything. Marketing is just letting people know, hey, I did something. Hey, I created this, and maybe you want this, and it doesn't matter how many people want your product. If they don't know it's there, they're never going to buy it. And so I really got obsessed with, what does it look like to publish a book the right way, or at least with the information that I had. And so I had a couple people who had done it differently, but really YouTube University, YouTube, man. I just got obsessed with finding, and you know what I did is I was looking at other people's launch teams and what they did and their strategies and how that worked. And I kind of picked and pulled from a buffet of different options. And I really made my own like amalgamation of what I thought was going to work. A lot of this stuff was a hypothesis. A lot of this stuff was a guess, but I just had this unrelenting faith that, man, I am somebody that figures it out. That's an internal thought monologue and dialogue I have with myself. You figure things out. You do hard things. And so there's a reason why the book was done in February, but I waited till June. I needed to learn how to do this the right way.
Oh man, that's so powerful. Yeah, YouTube University changes everybody's life. I mean, you can learn how to do something. It just takes a little bit of time. And Nate, thank you so much for being here, man. Like, you are so inspirational, so grounded, and just the book is outstanding. Like, I'm just so thankful you came on the podcast. And I'm curious, is there anything I haven't asked you about? Anything you want to go back to clarify? Anything you want to go deeper with?
Yeah, so a big passion of mine is helping people who feel stuck and who are ready to make that next step. And so, what I've actually started to do is I've been going to different rehab facilities, recovery centers, and different meetings where people are ready to make a change in their life. And I've been able to actually give this book away to them for free. And the whole reason I'm able to do that is through this Pay It Forward initiative that I've created, where somebody can actually go and buy a book for someone that they have never met before in their life. And I will personally make sure that I deliver it to them. And you actually get the opportunity to be a part of somebody else's comeback story. And so we want to talk about doing a random act of kindness for somebody. Where you literally get to pay it forward and watch as somebody else's life gets to be transformed and changed. And so if you want to participate if you want to help, if you want to be a part of somebody's solution, you can go to you'llneverchange.com/pay it forward. I have a goal of giving away 1,000 books this year. And I really have this dream of giving away 10,000 books in 2022. And so that is where I'm really focusing a lot of my effort and energy, is getting this book in the hands of people who might not ever buy it for themselves. And so if you'd like to partner with me, if you'd like to be a part of somebody else's comeback, again, that's you'llneverchange.com/payitforward.
Oh man, I love that. That's the ultimate act of kindness, is changing somebody's life with a book, because I think we've all experienced that one book that completely changed your life. And as an author, as a reader, it doesn't matter. To be a part of that journey is just so powerful, man. So gosh, that's so amazing. I love it. And for everybody listening, like if you want to pay it forward, check it out. And Nate, where can people find you? You know, you have the website there, but where can people find you on socials and the website and all that?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Who Is Nate Dukes, or you can find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Who Is Nate Dukes. You could sign up for my weekly email that I send out. It's called a weekly wisdom. You know, the internet is a crazy place, but I've curated some of the best YouTube videos, podcasts, audiobooks, books, things that I'm reading and listening to, and I call it wisdom. And so if you want to sign up for that, you can go to you'llneverchange.com/wisdom.
Oh, it's so beautiful, man. And I know you're a coach, and what kind of coaching do you do with folks? Like who is your ideal client?
So somebody who's ready to make a comeback, somebody that's experienced failure, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of addiction. Even though I have coached several guys who have felt like, man, I'm ready to make some changes in my life. And I just don't believe that getting clean and sober is the goal of anybody's life. I really do believe that that's a side effect of wanting more. So if you want more, if you're hungry to go to another level and you want to experience fulfillment along the way, I do this 6-week mentorship program that I do, and I'd love to talk about that with anybody that's interested.
Oh, that's so awesome. And any final thoughts here? Any last words for folks that are listening?
Yeah, if you are ready to write a book and you have a message and you are feeling like, man, there's something more inside of me, I just want to encourage you, foster that. Don't run away from it. Lean into that, because it's there for a reason. God did not place that there as just a fun idea for you. He placed it there so you could start to meditate and build on it. So I hope that encourages you. I hope that builds you up. You're actually doing something of significance. And anytime you do something of significance, you're always going to start to attract some haters or some fear or some doubt. And so if you are experiencing fear, it is a sign of significance. Uncertainty is a sign of significance. Haters are a sign of significance. So lean into that, push through, and watch what comes on the other side.
Oh man, such a powerful message, and yeah, so true. And this is what the whole podcast is about, is really inspiring that person that has that book that's just screaming in the back of their mind, but they're trying to ignore it. That's who listens to this podcast, and that's who is I want to inspire to write a book. So thank you, Nate, for that message, and thank you so much for an amazing interview. And just God bless you, because you're changing the world one book at a time. And I love it. I love your mission. I love your message. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for everybody listening, check out the links in the notes. And yeah, we'll talk to you on the next one. And Nate, please go out there and just keep changing the world, because you're doing amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love this podcast, and I love what you guys are doing.
There's an infinite amount of books floating out there in the ether, and all you have to do is tap into your highest self and write it. What if you could go out in the wilderness or international trek and experience firsthand shamanic healing, mental emotional release, and write your first draft? Writing a book isn't about the book. It's about the integration and healing that book facilitates, isn't it? Because when the book heals the author, the book heals the reader. And that's an amazing thing. If you've been procrastinating writing your book for years now, you can hear that book screaming for its life every night. Join me for a backcountry breakthrough. You'll experience guided trekking, daily energy sessions, mental emotional release, and writing sessions that guarantee your rough draft by the time you get back to the trailhead. Join me for a backcountry breakthrough. Go to mountainmindtricks/backcountry-breakthrough. So go to mountainmindtricks.com/backcountry-breakthroughs. Writing a book isn't about the actual book, because there's going to be those obstacles that try and derail you from the actual writing. The key is persevering through the pain of writing every day. The book begins to highlight your emotional deep core wounds in a way that makes you want to quit writing, right? But if you stay on the course, the old beliefs, the old identity of yourself, the negative ways of thinking begin to fall away. And suddenly, a new way of being starts to emerge. This is when the book begins to come alive and write itself. Because in this moment, you aren't writing the book is writing itself as you have this internal transformation. This is the essence of healing through writing. Is your book screaming from the back of your mind? I know mine was. What would happen if your healing journey stopped here? You never got over that final hump. Your regret, remorse from not writing your book was the source of mind, body, future disease. I mean, what would you tell your clients if you couldn't work anymore? Go be healed somewhere else? I mean, what would happen if your business failed because you hold yourself back from your highest self? What would it be like if you regretted the book you never wrote, and your last thoughts on your deathbed was, I wish I would have written that book? See, all these things are tragic, but it's possible for you to reach your big dream and be a #1 best-selling author. When the book heals the author, the book heals the reader. And this is a powerful concept because when books heal the reader, they sell and they go #1 bestseller. And so I'm starting this movement of healing through writing and using the breakthrough session to release the root cause of writer's block, that procrastination, that loss of motivation when you started writing your book, or you had the idea and you never started. There's one-on-one coaching calls, weekly homework and accountability. After a comprehensive health assessment, we build habits and systems and goals to keep you on track. There's MP3 guided meditations, one-on-one hypnosis. And then I really teach you how to get published, how to self-publish, or publish with my company, Mountain Mind Tricks Publishing. Then you leverage your book on podcasts, talk shows, speaking engagements, and you manifest that prosperity and passive income you're really looking for in your business. So I want you to check out breakthroughwritersblock.com and join the Healing Through Writing movement. It'll be the best thing you've ever done in your life because writing a book will completely change everything. So go to breakthroughwritersblock.com. Again, that's breakthroughwritersblock.com. Are you a new author that's trying to wade through self-publishing of what category should I pick, find the right designer, get an editor? What about the formatting? What's the dimensions that the actual spine of the book have to be? Is it gloss or white paper? There's so many different things that goes on in publishing. And that's why I'm dedicated to helping indie authors that have gone through this healing journey through writing their own book. Publish that piece of art, publish that amazing work that could help heal others. And here's the thing, is when a book heals the author, the book heals the reader. And this is so huge. I know I say this all the time, but it's so important. And I want to help the world make a huge impact by spreading more books that heal the reader. So if this sounds like you, I want you to go to mountainmindtricks.com/publishing. Again, that's mountainmindtricks.com/publishing. And if you're wading through, should I publish on Amazon? What about Ingram Spark? How do I get my book into bookstores? What should I do to even launch a book? How do I get on podcasts? There's so many things that go into publishing. And again, that's why I'm here for you. I want to publish your book. So if this sounds like you, go to mountainmindtricks.com/publishing. Again, mountainmindtricks.com/publishing.